I thought prison would break me. The walls, the bars, the endless shadows. I was sure they'd swallow me whole. But what I didn't expect was him. Softly. A man everyone feared, yet the one who looked at me differently. In this yaoi romance, this BL webtoon moment, love didn't blossom in classrooms or cafes. It was born in the harshest place imaginable, a prison cell. But was it love or survival? The story begins with Do-hyun, a quiet 22-year-old university dropout. His life derailed after one mistake, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, a bar fight, a broken bottle, and suddenly he was convicted of assault. No history of violence, no connections to protect him, just a guilty verdict and a 3-year sentence. When Do-hyun arrives at the prison gates, he feels like a lamb being led to slaughter. The guards bark orders, the inmates stare like wolves. Everything smells of sweat, metal, and fear. For someone who'd spent most of his life in libraries and coffee shops, this new world feels suffocating. Then there's Kang Jun-ho, a man whispered about in every corridor. Tall, broad-shouldered, covered in scars that look like war trophies. He's been locked up for nearly a decade and everyone knows he runs the place. Even the guards step carefully around him. But beneath that intimidating exterior lies something else. Jun-ho isn't reckless. He's calculated, intelligent, and when his gaze falls on Do-hyun, the boy trembling in his ill-fitting uniform, something shifts. Do-hyun is assigned to the same cell block as Jun-ho. At first, it's pure terror. In BL tropes, this is the opposites collide setup. The innocent newcomer versus the hardened veteran. A classic manhwa love story framework. Do-hyun tries to stay invisible, keeping his head down, counting the days until release. But Jun-ho doesn't allow invisibility. One night, he calls Do-hyun over, voice low, commanding, "You, sit here." From that moment, Do-hyun's life changes. What begins as protection soon feels like possession. Whispers spread. The boss has a new wife. Do-hyun resents the nickname, wife. It burns in his chest. But survival in prison isn't about pride. It's about alliances. And being near Jun-ho means no one touches him. No one dares bully him. Still, the cost of safety is intimacy. At first, it's small things. Jun-ho takes Do-hyun's untouched bread roll at meals and slides back a boiled egg in return. He orders Do-hyun to do his laundry, then hands him an extra blanket during the freezing nights. It's a strange push and pull, half dominance, half care. "Why me?" Do-hyun blurts one night, unable to take the silence. Jun-ho smirks, the faintest curve of lips, "Because you don't look at me like I'm a monster." The words linger. Do-hyun can't deny it. Yes, Jun-ho is terrifying, but when he speaks, his voice is calm, almost gentle. Days stretch into weeks. Their bond deepens, though neither names it love. When rival inmates threaten Do-hyun in the showers, Jun-ho appears like a shadow, fist clenched, jaw set. Afterward, he wipes the blood from Do-hyun's cheek with shocking tenderness. "Stay close to me," he says, "always." But prison is a pressure cooker. Whispers follow them everywhere. Other inmates mock Do-hyun, calling him Jun-ho's pet. Guards watch too closely. Rumors turn into tension. Do-hyun feels torn. On one hand, Jun-ho's presence anchors him in this nightmare. On the other, he fears losing himself. Is this bond real, or just prison survival dressed as affection? Conflict sharpens when Do-hyun learns the truth about Jun-ho's sentence. For weeks, he had lived with the rumors. Whispers spread in every corner of the prison. Jun-ho is a gang leader. Jun-ho killed men without blinking. Jun-ho's hands are stained with blood that will never wash off. Do-hyun believed some of it. How could he not? The scars on Junho's knuckles, the way other inmates flinched when his shadow fell across them, the raw authority in every word he spoke. Junho was terrifying. And in a place where strength dictated survival, that terror kept him untouchable. But one evening, when the world outside turned the sky orange and the bars of their cell glowed with fading light, the truth broke open. Do-hyun had asked without thinking, his voice small, tentative. "Why are you here, Hyung?" For a long moment, Junho didn't answer. He leaned against the wall, eyes cast downward, fingers tapping a slow rhythm on his knee. His silence pressed down on Do-hyun until he regretted asking at all. Then, in a voice low enough to sound like confession, Junho replied, "I killed a man." The words should have frozen Do-hyun, but instead they burned, hot, sharp, undeniable. His throat tightened. "You killed someone?" Junho finally looked at him, not with pride, not with menace. His gaze was heavy, tired, as if carrying years of weight. "He was hurting my younger brother for months. No one stopped him. Not the teachers, not the neighbors. No one cared, so I did." The cell was quiet except for the distant clang of doors shutting and footsteps echoing in the hall. Do-hyun's chest ached as he tried to process it. "You killed him for your brother," he whispered. "Yes." Junho's voice didn't tremble, but his fists clenched as if the memory was still alive inside him. "I told myself I'd scare him, make him stop. But when I saw my brother crying, bruised, broken, something in me snapped. I didn't care what happened to me anymore. I only cared that he would never touch him again." Do-hyun stared. All the rumors, the talk of gang wars, street fights, bloody dominance, crumbled in an instant. Junho's crime wasn't senseless violence. It was love. Brutal, reckless love. For the first time, Do-hyun saw not a monster, but a man. A man capable of terrifying strength, yes, but also of an almost unbearable kind of devotion. His voice shook as he asked, "And your brother? Is he okay now?" Junho nodded slowly. "He's safe. He's studying abroad, living a life I can't have." That's all I wanted. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was fragile, tender. Do-hyun felt something inside him shift. The fear that had once defined Junho in his mind began to dissolve. He remembered the moments others ignored. The way Junho slid food onto his tray when he thought Do-hyun wasn't eating enough. The way he shoved an extra blanket toward him during cold nights. The way his eyes softened, just barely, whenever they met. Suddenly, those gestures made sense. Junho wasn't just protecting him because he wanted possession or power. He was protecting because it was in his nature, because love, to Junho, was inseparable from sacrifice. That night, Do-hyun couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, listening to the steady sound of Junho's breathing beside him. His mind spun with questions he couldn't voice. How much had Junho lost in order to keep his brother safe? How many nights had he spent in this same cell, staring at the same cracks, wondering if he had done the right thing? Do-hyun's chest tightened with something he didn't want to name. Sympathy, admiration, a pull stronger than fear. The days after were different, subtle but undeniable. When Junho walked beside him in the yard, Do-hyun no longer shrank back. He matched his steps, even dared to glance up at him. When Junho corrected his grip during work duty, their fingers brushed, and instead of recoiling, Do-hyun's pulse leapt. In the cafeteria, a group of inmates jeered as they passed. "Look, the boss and his little wife," one sneered. Normally, Do-hyun would have burned with shame. But this time, his eyes flicked to Junho, calm, unbothered, a faint smirk playing at his lips as if their words were dust on the wind. That calm steadied Do-hyun too. For the first time, he didn't feel like a possession. He felt like someone Jun-ho chose. But choice came with danger. Their closeness drew more attention. Rival factions began to whisper. Guards looked longer, suspicion darkening their faces. Protection was a shield, but it was also a target. One evening, while cleaning in the corridor, Do-hyun overheard two inmates plotting. "We can't touch Jun-ho, but the kid, he's his weak spot. Take him out and the boss breaks." Fear coiled in Do-hyun's stomach, but when he told Jun-ho later, the man's reaction wasn't anger, it was quiet resolve. "I told you, Do-hyun," Jun-ho said, brushing a hand across the back of his neck, steadying him. "Stay close to me. No one will harm you while I'm breathing." His words were both terrifying and comforting. They carried the weight of someone who had already killed for family, and who might, if pushed, kill again. Do-hyun's perspective kept unraveling. One night, as rain tapped against the barred window, he asked softly, "Do you ever regret it?" Jun-ho turned his head, eyes glinting in the half-light. "Regret?" He was silent for a long while. Finally, he exhaled. "Every day. Not for what I did to him, but for what I lost after. My freedom. My brother's chance to have me in his life. Regret isn't simple, Do-hyun. It lives with you, eats with you, sleeps beside you." Do-hyun's throat tightened. He wanted to reach out to bridge the space between them, but fear of the guards, of the prison, of the fragility of what lay between them held him back. Yet he couldn't stop his whisper. "If you regret it, would you do it again?" Jun-ho's gaze softened, his voice low but certain. "For him, 1,000 times." And in that moment, Do-hyun understood. Jun-ho wasn't a man shaped by cruelty. He was shaped by love so fierce it turned into fire. Do-hyun's heart ached with something close to longing, to be loved like that, to be seen as worth fighting for, even if it meant losing everything else. The shift in Do-hyun wasn't sudden, but it was steady. Every glance from Jun-ho now carried weight. Every word echoed deeper. When Jun-ho sat with him, silence no longer felt suffocating, it felt safe. When Jun-ho brushed against him in the narrow cell, Do-hyun's skin tingled with awareness he couldn't ignore. He started noticing small things. The way Jun-ho always faced the door, as if instinctively shielding Do-hyun from anyone who might enter. The way his voice dropped softer when speaking to him than to anyone else. The way he watched him, like he was memorizing, holding on. It terrified Do-hyun, but it also warmed him. Because beneath the danger, beneath the rumors, Jun-ho wasn't just a man who had killed. He was a man who could cradle fragility in hands built for violence, a man who could look at Do-hyun trembling and uncertain and choose not to break him, but to guard him. Do-hyun's nights were no longer filled with dreams of escape. They were filled with Jun-ho's face, his voice, the confession that had changed everything, and though he couldn't admit it aloud, he knew the truth that pulsed beneath his ribs. Jun-ho was dangerous, but he was also gentle, and somehow, impossibly, Do-hyun wanted both. The tension builds. Every brush of their hands feels electric, every glance too long, too heavy. In a world where softness is forbidden, their growing closeness feels like rebellion. It happens during a stormy night. Rain lashes against the barred windows, thunder rolling like drums of war, power flickers, and the prison sinks into semi-darkness. Do-hyun lies awake, heart racing, when Jun-ho speaks. "Do-hyun, come here." Trembling, Do-hyun crosses the small space. Jun-ho's hand cups the back of his neck, steady, anchoring. For the first time, he doesn't look like a king or a monster. He looks vulnerable. Don't be afraid of me, Junho whispers. Do-hyun swallows, his voice breaking. I'm not afraid. Not of you. And then it happens. Their first kiss. It isn't rehearsed. It isn't gentle. It isn't even planned. It crashes into them like a storm breaking after months of pressure in the air. Desperate, clumsy, filled with every unsaid word, every look too long, every moment where their hands brushed but didn't linger. Do-hyun doesn't know who moves first. Maybe it's Junho, with his shadow stretching long in the dim glow of the cell's single bulb. Maybe it's himself trembling with a need he can no longer swallow down. All he knows is 1 second they are staring at each other, the silence a rope pulled unbearably tight, and the next, their mouths collide. It's not about dominance. It's not about prison hierarchy. It's not about the image others have forced on them. The boss and his wife. No. This kiss is something raw, more dangerous. It's about release. About finally letting the floodgates open after being chained shut for too long. About finding something human in a place designed to strip humanity away. Do-hyun feels his back press against the cold concrete wall, but he barely registers it. All he feels is Junho, solid, unyielding, yet shaking just slightly, as if even he isn't immune to this pull. Their lips crash again, harder this time, messy and breathless. Do-hyun gasps, the sound swallowed by Junho's mouth, and suddenly the entire prison seems to disappear. The bars vanish, the guards vanish, the whispers, the rules, the fear melt away. For once, Do-hyun isn't a prisoner. He isn't weak. He isn't someone clinging to survival. He's just a man wanted by another man. At first, the kiss is all fire, urgent, unpracticed, reckless. Do-hyun's hands twitch at his sides, unsure, until instinct takes over and he grips the fabric of Junho's shirt, tugging him closer. The action surprises them both. Junho lets out a sound, half groan, half laugh, that vibrates against Do-hyun's lips. That sound shatters Do-hyun's hesitation. The kiss deepens. Junho angles his head, mouth moving with more purpose now, less collision and more connection. His lips are rough, like the man himself, but when they part slightly, when his breath mingles with Do-hyun's, there's a tenderness hidden there, a gentleness Junho doesn't show anyone else. Do-hyun's heart hammers, louder than the rain against the barred window, louder than the footsteps echoing faintly down the hall. His entire body feels alive, every nerve sparked awake. His stomach knots with fear, fear of being caught, fear of what this means. But beneath it, stronger than all of it, is longing. Longing that he can't deny anymore. The seconds stretch. Junho pulls back slightly, just enough for their foreheads to touch. His chest rises and falls in uneven rhythm, breath hot against Do-hyun's lips. His voice is hoarse, breaking the silence like a secret whispered in the dark. Do-hyun, tell me to stop. If this is too much, say it now. The words stabbed through him. Stop. How could he stop when this was the first time he felt real, felt alive, felt wanted? His lips tremble, but the word that leaves him isn't stop, don't, just that one word, soft, desperate. And it's enough. Junho's eyes flicker. Something wild, something vulnerable, and then his mouth is on Do-hyun's again. Slower this time, more deliberate, as if savoring. This kiss isn't about urgency. It's about discovery, about exploring a truth they've both been running from. Do-hyun lets himself feel everything. The scratch of stubble against his skin, the taste of warmth and something faintly bitter, maybe from the cigarettes Junho sneaks when no one's looking. The way Junho's hand cups the back of his neck, firm but careful, like he's holding something precious. He melts into it. He forgets about the cell, the walls, the label of prisoner. For the first time, He isn't just surviving, he's living. And Junho, this man everyone fears, this man who carries violence in his past like a scar that never fades, he kisses like someone who's been starving, not just hungry for touch, but for connection, for warmth, for something that reminds him he isn't only fists and blood and the weight of a murder he'll never outrun. Do-hyun feels it in every press of Junho's lips, the ache of years where gentleness was denied him, the loneliness stitched into his bones, the fear that the world has no softness left. For a man like him, he kisses like someone who hasn't let himself taste sweetness in years, like someone terrified that if he loosens his grip even a little, if he dares to savor instead of consume, it will be stolen away. And Do-hyun, fragile, uncertain, trembling, meets that hunger with his own, because he too has been starving, not for food, not for freedom, but for the simple, devastating knowledge that he matters, that someone sees him, that someone wants him, not as prey, not as a burden, not as another nameless inmate, but as himself. Their desperation collides, fierce and clashing, like two storms crashing over the ocean. But then, miraculously, it softens. The fire doesn't disappear, it transforms. What begins as frantic urgency melts into something slower, heavier, soul deep. Not hunger anymore, but need. The kind that anchors itself into marrow, into heartbeats, into unspoken truths neither of them dared to whisper. Do-hyun shudders as Junho's hand finds the curve of his jaw. The touch is rough, calloused from fights and years of scraping survival with his bare fists. But beneath the strength is caution, almost reverence, as though he's holding glass that might shatter. Do-hyun's own fingers, hesitant at first, clutch at Junho's shirt. The fabric bunches under his grip, knuckles white, as if he's afraid that if he doesn't hold tight, this moment will vanish into smoke. And maybe it will, because nothing lasts in this place. Not warmth, not kindness, not peace. Everything here is stolen sooner or later. But tonight, just tonight, they take it anyway. The kiss deepens. Do-hyun gasps against Junho's mouth, and Junho swallows the sound like it's the only language he's fluent in. Their breaths mingle, hot and uneven, and for once Do-hyun doesn't feel like a prisoner trapped behind walls. He feels like a man wanted, a man who, for one impossible heartbeat, belongs to someone. Every scrape of lips, every shaky exhale, every trembling brush of tongue is a rebellion against the system, against the walls, against the image they've both been forced to wear. Do-hyun isn't weak, Junho isn't a beast, not here, not now, here. They are just two men who ache. Junho pulls back for only a moment, resting his forehead against Do-hyun's. His chest heaves and his voice, when it comes, is hoarse, trembling in a way Do-hyun has never heard before. Do-hyun, his breath hitches. If I go further, there's no turning back. The words claw into the silence, heavy, dangerous, full of warning. But Do-hyun doesn't hesitate. His own whisper comes out cracked but steady enough to hold weight. Then don't stop. Something breaks inside Junho at those words. He kisses Do-hyun again, but slower now, almost reverent, like he's memorizing him, like he's engraving this moment into memory because he knows nothing in prison is guaranteed. Tomorrow could rip it all away. His lips trace softer paths, lingering, savoring. He maps the corners of Do-hyun's mouth, brushes over the trembling edge of his bottom lip, coaxing instead of consuming. It feels less like possession now and more like devotion. Do-hyun's eyes flutter shut, tears prickling at the corners, not from fear, but from the ache of finally being touched like this, from being kissed, not as a transaction, not as dominance, but as if he's something cherished, something worth holding. The cell around them disappears. The dripping faucet, the shadows stretching along the wall, the iron bars that loom like a cage, all of it fades. There is only warmth, only hands, only lips, only them. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. Neither knows, neither cares. When they finally part, breathless, their lips swollen, Do-hyun collapses back against the wall, chest rising and falling too fast. His body feels both heavy and light, his heart still racing wild in his ribcage. Junho doesn't move far. He hovers, close enough that their breaths mingle. His eyes burn, not with anger, not with violence, but with something that makes Do-hyun's knees tremble. Longing. And something more dangerous still, hope. Do-hyun's voice breaks the silence first, fragile and trembling. Why me? It's the question that's lived in him since the day Junho claimed him as protection, since the rumors began calling him the boss's wife. Why him, when Junho could have chosen anyone? Why him, the quiet one, the nobody, the boy with shaking hands and downcast eyes? Junho swallows hard, his throat working, his voice ragged when he finally answers, "Because when I look at you, I don't feel like a monster anymore." The confession slams into Do-hyun like a punch to the chest. He stares, breath caught, lips parted, unable to speak. Because in that moment, he realizes it isn't just him who's been starving. Junho has too, starving for forgiveness, for redemption, for proof that he's still human despite the blood on his hands, and somehow, impossibly, Do-hyun is that proof. The knowledge terrifies him, but it also ignites something fierce inside him, because he doesn't just want Junho's protection anymore. He wants Junho, not the legend, not the criminal, not the beast the others whisper about, the man, the broken, starved, aching man who just kissed him like he was life itself. Their eyes lock, and in the silence that follows, the truth settles between them, unspoken but undeniable. This isn't just survival anymore. This is need. This is connection. This is something soul deep. And no matter how dangerous, no matter how impossible, it has already begun. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. Time doesn't exist. Not in this kiss. When they finally pull apart, breathless, their lips are swollen, their chests heaving. Do-hyun leans against the wall, dizzy, staring at Junho like he's seeing him for the first time. Junho's expression is unreadable, guarded, conflicted, but his eyes give him away. They're burning, not with anger, not with control, but with something so intense it makes Do-hyun's knees weak. Neither of them speaks at first. Words feel too fragile for what just happened. But silence can't hold forever. Do-hyun swallows hard, voice shaking as he whispers, "Why me?" It's the question that's haunted him since the first time Junho stepped between him and danger. Since the first time Junho offered protection without asking for anything in return. Since the first time he realized his heartbeat quickened whenever their eyes met. Why him, when Junho could have anyone bending under his power? Why him, the quiet one, the scared one, the one who doesn't belong here? Junho exhales slowly, gaze never leaving him. "Because you make me forget." Do-hyun blinks. Forget? What? That I'm a killer, that I'm a monster in their eyes, that this place owns me. His voice cracks, raw and unpolished. "When I look at you, Do-hyun, I feel like a man again. Not a prisoner, not a beast, just a man." The words hit harder than the kiss itself. Do-hyun's chest tightens, his throat burning. He wants to deny it, to laugh it off, but he can't, because he feels the same. When Junho's eyes are on him, he forgets his own fear. He forgets the whispers. He forgets the cold. For a moment, they both forget the world. But reality creeps back in, like it always does. The sound of a guard's boots stomping down the hallway, the distant clang of metal, the reminder that this isn't freedom. Their eyes meet again, the unspoken truth heavy between them. This is dangerous. If anyone sees, if anyone suspects, everything will shatter. And yet, Do-hyun reaches up, fingers trembling, and brushes them against Junho's hand. Just a touch, just enough to say, "I'm not afraid." Junho's jaw tightens, but he doesn't pull away. Instead, he threads their fingers together for a fleeting second before letting go. His voice is a whisper, almost lost to the noise outside. "No matter what happens, you're mine to protect." The promise sends shivers down Do-hyun's spine, not because it sounds like a claim, but because it sounds like devotion. That night, when the lights go out and the prison sinks into restless silence, Do-hyun lies awake again. Only this time, it isn't fear that keeps him from sleep. It's the memory of lips against his, the warmth of hands that could break bones but chose instead to hold him steady. The realization that in a place built to strip everything away, he has found something no one can touch. A kiss, a beginning, a fire that no matter how dark the world outside becomes, will keep burning between them. And though the future is uncertain, though every day is still a fight for survival, Do-hyun knows one thing with absolute clarity. He will never see Junho as just a monster again, because monsters don't kiss like that. Only men do. Only men who love do. Morning comes. The storm has passed, but something in their world has changed forever. Do-hyun no longer feels like Junho's possession. He feels like his partner. They still face taunts, suspicion, and the endless monotony of prison life. But inside, Do-hyun has shifted. He no longer counts the days just to survive. He counts them knowing he's not alone. The lesson is clear. Even in the harshest places, love can take root. Sometimes it looks like rebellion. Sometimes it looks like survival. But at its core, it's the same. It saves us from loneliness, from despair, from becoming the monsters the world expects us to be. What do you think of Do-hyun and Junho's story? Softly. Was it heartbreaking, sweet, or beautifully forbidden? Comment your reaction below. I read every one. Don't forget to subscribe for more BL webtoon breakdowns and yaoi manhwa love stories, and check the description for full story links and more LGBTQ romance recommendations.